everyone, welcome to our channel. This is our podcast, Sugar, Spice, and Everything Chaos. I'm your host, Anne, and that is my co host.
Berlin. This is our 10th episode, and we're continuing our series on pain, the glorification of pain, especially in women. So, just to kind of recall the episode from the previous, the content from the previous episode, we started with talking about pain and how pain is real. And we also spoke about how pain, as much as it's a physically felt sensation, it's very subjective and it's something that is more of a psychological phenomena than just a physical phenomena. Uh, so I think we started talking about endometriosis and we spoke about how endometriosis is basically like cancer, but because we don't study women, we don't really uh, care about like pain in women because we associate womanhood with pain. We don't look at it as a problem to begin with. We're going to continue the conversation along those lines where we talk about how pain is so normalized and more than normalized, it's also glorified. And so, what exactly are we going to cover today when it comes to pain?
Yeah, so the thing is, we started with talking about physiology in the last episode, and I think it is important to talk about social conditioning. So I think this episode is going to cover social conditioning, the social constructs, and the things around us, how it actually affects us as women, not just emotionally or psychologically, but also physiologically, how it is connected. So I think that is what we're going to cover today. Yeah.
Yeah, so for those of you guys who are listening, right, just to kind of put things in context for you, to understand how much pain is normalized and how much pain is tolerated by women, right? You see that there's this concept called WW in the medical field, where women are usually given this diagnosis of WW. So what this WW stands for is whining women. So what we see is women are more likely to do doctor shopping when they have symptoms, and doctors are very likely to dismiss them because women are very neurotic or histrionic, whatever. So they dismiss them. So after a point, it was kind of a joke within the medical community where they were labeled as WWs, right? So what you see is even today, women are majorly underrepresented in clinical research. And what this means is it translates into women not getting the treatment they deserve. A lot of late diagnoses, sometimes misdiagnoses, sometimes no diagnoses at all, which will eventually end up with, higher risk of morbidity and mortality. And we want to kind of emphasize how this is not fair. As women, we have to be treated as, equals, right? But then what you see is we're not really the same. So men and women, as much as we deserve equal status, we're not the same. If you look at physiology and anatomy, you see that the blood content, the proportions, the body hormones, all of these things are different for men and women, but then we don't treat it as such. And do you have any like understanding of why this difference exists? Why is it that like at the cultural level, we're socially conditioned to believe that it's okay if we don't have data on women. You worked in the medical field as well. You worked with a very famous hospital. Did you see this sort of thing happening in your practice?
Yeah, so I think that is where my personal experience of wanting to talk about it in this podcast is coming from. Is because I think since I was working with an IVF center, and many of the treatment has to be done for the women, even if the problem is with the male, because of the requirement or how the biology works, all the treatments are targeted towards women, right? So what happens is when women come to us and there's like thousands and thousands of women who come to us and they tell the doctors that they are going through a lot of pain, they're going through a lot of difficulties, discomfort, and those pains might be not related to what they are undergoing. It might not be part of the side effects or the symptoms. So doctors do not really care about the fact that whether they have other problems. It's never about the holistic. It's never about the taking care of the woman as a whole, keeping her healthy and happy. It's just about getting the target done, which is make a baby, right? So I think that is what is very common. And at the same time, if you look at the medical research, because I've been part of a lot of research and clinical research, so one thing you will see is, I don't know if anybody does research in our audience who are like well familiar of this. In research, we want something out of it, right? We want a result. We want to say that okay, this has worked or not have not worked. But what happens is it all comes back to funding and money, right? People don't want to spend a lot of time and money on things that they are not going to get anything from. For example, remember our master's research, we had to pick something where we will get data and it has to be helpful for us in terms of practically being helpful. So we were discouraged to take any topics which are like, might be difficult to study. So I think
Mm.
that is a common theme among doctors or among anybody who's doing research, is that take the thing that is much easier to deal with, so that you can do the research, get the data, get it published, get your thing cited. That's all it is. But women as a person, as a human being, we are very complex. We have a lot of hormones, we have a lot of things that are coming into our physiology. It's very mixed match. We are never like very easy to read. Even physiologically we are not easy to read, right? So it becomes too complex for people to study. So funding is a problem, timing is a problem, people do not want to do it. I think that is what I would say is been happening so far, and it's really sad actually.
Right. So now we have like a problem that's at a social level where we turn a blind eye to women's research as a whole. And then we also have this sort of social expectation in the name of tradition where we normalize pain in women, where you see that, anytime we look at pain in women, women enduring something that's difficult, we kind of glorify it to the point where you say, okay, like this is the woman, right? So when we look at I don't know if you've seen this, it was a viral reel that was going around where it said, nobody here who's alive knows a relaxed woman. Nobody here knows a woman who knows how to rest. Because I think like women more than anyone else is told that laziness is a disease, laziness is a sin. So more often than not, women do not know how to regulate themselves without work. I know a lot of people, friends of mine, I think including me to some extent, when I'm really stressed, I actually do more. I clean my room, I clean the space around me. So what I find is like even when we are stressed, we kind of get some sort of pleasure from pain. Like the fact that, like I get to do the things around my house and then like suffer a little bit gives me a sort of like release, a sort of satisfaction. Why do you think we become this way? Why do you think we don't know how to like just shush and like rest? Why is it that we keep chasing pain? We keep chasing suffering.
I don't know if you actually look at it for women. I think we've spoken about this in previous episodes as well. It's something to do with our identity or a self-worth. I think, like I spoke before in a previous episode, having pain, having to be able to bear pain through the form of childbirth or periods is the only reason men have kept us for so many years. And right now, I think we women have evolved to become more empowered, become more independent, do everything that's possible on the planet, which a man could do. But the same thing is something that is being reinforced on us by society. Like yesterday, I was talking to my friend, and it's just a common thing. I was telling her that, society, she was telling that, another friend was saying society is expecting me to get a child now because she was just pressured to get married. Now she's pressured to have a child. So I was just saying that society is never going to be satisfied with us. Whether you are a mother, whether you are not a mother, whether you are a career woman, whether you don't work, whatever you do, it's never enough. The society is going to blame. There's a label for every woman. If you're at home, you're lazy. If you're working, you're, too selfish. If you're a mother who's, not attending your child's PTA meetings, you're like too rude or too business like women who doesn't care about family. If you're like, on the other hand, it's always a label. And I think we women have become so used to these labels. But what we don't understand is that we are trying to chase these labels. We are trying to become that person. Take the pain, undergo all the pain, suffer, sacrifice. And I don't know why we associate with all of these labels so much just because society has told us. And I want to tell you again, every one of you, even if you become the perfect thing that society is expecting you to be, they will still find fault in you. Don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. So I was actually going to ask you this question. Let's, reflect on this. Um, why do you think women, like who are educated right now, the young women, we know, right? We know much more than our grandmothers did, where the self-awareness that we have is much greater, which is why I think we also feel pain more. Like if you look at our grandmothers, like they didn't have a choice, right? Like they didn't have a choice when it came to a lot of things. Grandmothers never inherited land. They inherited gold, which meant they had to like migrate to wherever the husband's family was. You see that there was a lot of restrictions with the way they could do things because if you're a single lady back in the day, it's very easy to exploit you. You again fall under the control of some other male family member, whether it's your brother or your uncle or whatever. You're never left alone. It's either your father, husband, or some other male family member. So women didn't have a choice. Women knew that, it's better to have a known devil compared to an unknown angel because you never know. Like it was kind of like a lose-lose situation that women back in the day had it. But like if you look at the present day, things are different now. I think recently the Supreme Court kind of gave this order where they said if you're a single mom, you don't have to give the father's initial to the child. You get to, give your initial to the child, which is like a
Mm,
huge, movement, forward movement for women because that makes sense. And in any case, right, when there is a child involved who needs to be taken care of, all of us as a collective can agree that it's better for the child to be with a woman, a mother,
mm,
right, or a stepmother. But then we don't feel the same way when it comes to fathers or stepfathers,
mm.
and this is with good reason, right? So right now women, more than any other previous generation, are capable of critical thought. We have education, we have a lot of evidences to kind of support our sovereignty, like we know what we're doing, right? So despite all of these resources that we've managed to build over generations, why do you think women still struggle to speak up? Like, I'm a woman and I know this is wrong and I know this is not fair for me. I should be able to speak up to the society and say, no, I'm not going to do what you want, right? But then you see a lot of women feeling extremely guilty and then going back to this identity of like, no, I would rather suffer. I don't want anyone to feel uh, hurt because if I tell them, they might, not understand and that will be inconvenient for them. So I would rather, suffer in silence. Where is this sort of like savior mentality coming from where I would suffer in silence, even though I am like super educated? What's up with that?
I don't know. I think we have been brainwashed. It's years and years and years of conditioning that has come into us because I think yesterday was talking to it, and I was here also hearing my friends speaking about the societal things and the pressure that they are going through, and they're all well educated women. They are all well aware of how they want to be treated. They know how they want to be respected. They know how they want to stand in society. They have all of these awareness, but eventually it comes down to, but I have to do this. I have to go with the society. I have to do this. So I think I just thinking about all these social orders that's been put onto us. I don't want to. I might be attacked for this, but I think all these institutions and social orders that are there, that is existing in the world right now, it has been, if you actually go back and read the history, all these have been brought because they wanted to create order. They wanted to have control over the people. They wanted to create a set of domination over a set of individuals. Any kind of institutions of marriage, institution of religion, institution of order, the political society. I'm not saying all of this has been brought for a reason, which is to bring order. But the thing is, it has come to a point where we are trying to dominate a particular gender, which is women. That doesn't make sense at all. I would say, to answer your questions, It's years and years of brainwash and the wiring that's been done for us to our brain. Because as I said, we see our mothers, we see our grandmothers, and that's how we learn as children. That's how we grow as children. And I think that is what would be probably something that we need to really look inside and work on us. But I think when you were saying about this awareness, right, this education, this awareness, and all of this is something that we have. But do you think this awareness is going to be is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think when it comes to awareness, the more the awareness, the more sensitive you are going to be of pain. So I would say that like the previous generation, they did not have the awareness, so the pain was very minimal. Like they were able to stick to the tradition because the tradition existed. They were just basically functioning on this survival mentality, the fear instinct, where they did something just to avoid being killed, right? I think you have like documentaries out there where like young girls talk about how it's a big deal to be getting married to an old uncle who is willing to keep her alive, and she glorifies this sort of mentality where at least my husband doesn't want to kill me, he just wants to beat me, which is like a very huge privilege for that particular tradition of women. So I think like with awareness, because we know we have words like abuse and neglect and trauma, right? We know that like something is off, and it's like we have the vocabulary for it. But then this also means that the greater the awareness, the more the pain. I know a lot of women who kind of like we have this conversation where we're like, maybe ignorance would have been better. Ignorance was bliss, because now that we know things are wrong and we're making these decisions, what's happening is we're lonely. Because I know friends who are like going through major life changes like divorce, or they're going through changes where they're in no contact situation with their parents. So a lot of shifting that's happening along those lines. And what they say is they did not expect it to be this lonely, because they thought like because they're making such educated decisions, everyone would be understanding of their life, because they are part of like very aware educated circles. But then what they found was when they came out and said, this abuse is happening to me, or this is something that, I can't tolerate anymore, all the people were like, please adjust. Like, what's the, like, this is very wrong. And that was even more difficult because, like, what do you mean adjust? Am I supposed to tolerate this knowing that this is wrong? Knowing that, because we have movies that show us, like, physical abuse is bad, emotional abuse is bad. And this awareness is great, but then now that I have this awareness, I look at this world and I realize this world is in hell. Like it's not a kind world at all. So how am I supposed to live when I know that this world is not worth fighting for? Like survival is life, right? Like I need to survive for life. But if I survive, right, I'm just surviving every day because this world is not really giving me any rest. So I think that's the conflict that we need to discuss as well. I think most women who are probably listening to this know that there is pain, know where the pain is coming from. They're very self-aware as it is. But the real question would be, how do I stop feeling the pain? How do I get better? How do I create systems that would oppose the system that's oppressing me?
I think one thing it is about being authentic. I think it's all about, see, I was saying this year I wanted to be the B word, because the whole point of being a bee is because I want to be as open as possible about what I feel, what I want. And I'm not being rude, I'm not doing it with an intent of hurting the other person, but if it has to go to that point where I have to speak for myself, say that this is not right. For example, I had this conversation regarding marriage with one of my family members, and then I said, you know what, this is my life, this is somebody I'm going to live with for the rest of my life, and it is my decision, and how come that you are getting involved and saying that I have to spend my life with another person? So at that moment I might have sounded as a B word, but then that is the line that we have to draw, that you have to say that, okay, I am going to be selfish, if that is what you want to call. that I'm selfish, if that is what you want to call me, rude. But it's because it's very difficult for women, as even if you do speak up a little bit, even if you just say no, even if you say I don't want, you are being framed as a B word already. So why don't you just start becoming one? Why do you have to please and set the standard of a perfectly sacrificing, this heavenly goddess woman? Why do you have to be? I think that is all I want to say.
But I think, for a lot of women, this would be a problem where, see, if your parents or your family is completely abusive from the very beginning, right? It's easier to kind of leave them because you're like, okay, these people never understood me. I don't care about them, right? But then what you see in Indian families is they slowly like treat us well for some occasions. They don't treat us well for some. So what you see is abuse in general is not consistently bad treatment. It's bad treatment, good treatment, bad treatment, good treatment. So it's very confusing. So you share very wonderful positive memories with the same people who gave you the most trauma. So it's not easy to relieve a relationship like this because you know that after the bad stuff, right, that goes on between the two of you, you're gonna get good stuff as well, right? And when you're addicted to this familiarity, right, where there is high and then there is low, there is high and there is low, it's very difficult for you to believe that there is stable, like highs. You know that there is going to be a crash. You because you're trained to kind of believe that that's kind of what relationship is all about. So how do you like stay authentic when your authenticity is going to be dismissed? I think this happens with people as well, where okay, I will be all these things, and then sometimes they just dismiss you. They're like, yeah, you say all of it, and then you see that they go behind your back and they do the things that you told them specifically not to do, and that feels like betrayal. But then in their terms, right, in their dictionary, it is care. They care about you. So even when you don't want it, they will intrusively do things in your life, right? It could be things like like let's say you say no, and then they transfer money into your account, and then they say, think about it, get married to who the person we tell you to get married to. So as much as you want to kind of uphold your ego and all that, it's also like, wow, my parents are nice, they gave me money, they gave me so much money. Security. So would you choose like security, or would you choose to gamble with like some random person you don't know? Like at least here you have security. So I think these are the like real life situations that women deal with, unfortunately, right? So you become part of patriarchy, or you stand alone with no support system, right? All the women who are going to be cheering you, saying, you go, girl, right? You go be that bee, whatever. They're not going to really be there for you. But then your family is going to be there for you. They will abuse you, but they will also feed you, right? So how do you kind of jump out of the social conditioning? It's the matrix basically. When you know that support is important, social support is so important for the human brain for survival. The minute you think you're alone, I think you get closer to deaths than you would be to know that you're not alone. And that's the reason we are obsessed with your social labels, right? Let it be your religion, your caste, the place where you're from. Like Indians have this thing, where are you from, where are you from? Why do you think we're obsessed with the village? And there's a reason. Because the minute you kind of identify, oh, you're Tamil, I'm Tamilian too, right? There is that sort of safety that we get out of it. But then if you choose to deviate from that and get married to some guy from somewhere else, then you can't do that anymore because your baby will be racially ambiguous. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous for survival. You see a lot of studies where they talk about interracial like couples and children from those marriages, right? You will see that these children deal with like an identity crisis. Am I a black person? Am I a white person? So how do you build systems for authenticity? Because one time authenticity is fine, but if you want to be consistently authentic, you also need to have consistent social support from the people around you.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I also don't feel I could answer this question because I think, to be honest, one thing I would say is there are times that people have asked me to listen to them because they are offering me some support. And I think that is the very thing I have stood against. And I think this is another conversation I had with one of my family member. I said, because you're doing for me all of this, I cannot like worship you, I cannot like listen to you. That is not part of my value system. That is not something that I can do. I will respect you for the person you are, but not for what you do. So I think it is very tricky in terms of like, I understand the matrix that you're talking about. If you are speaking up for yourself and being authentic, you are being rejected by the society, you become lonely. But if you are putting yourself, in that position and being okay with taking care, taking all that abuse and being quiet and having the silent suffering, then you are being abused a lot and you suffer physically and emotionally. So I think it's a very tricky place because you cannot leave both. You have to find that space where people accept you for this rude person you are, which is being selfish and being independent, being authentic. I think people have to come to accept you, but I think that comes from consistency and showing up. Okay, this is what who I am. I think one example I would say is my mother. I think from small, like she used to be very, I would say, like she would never listen to anyone. She's like very honest. She's very with her direct with her, her comments. If she doesn't like something, she doesn't mind. But people around her considered her rude. In her family and her all of her family members considered rude. But I think it has come to a point where when she had to do something for herself, people never questioned her because they said she's like that. She's like that. She's rude. She will do whatever she wants. She won't listen to anyone. But when it came to me, when I, rebelled, they said, how dare she does that? She used to be the good girl. How dare she, like, speak against me? How dare she says no? So I think that is something I learned, because if you set a standard for yourself and you become that standard and you teach others, this is how you should live your life. Because as a daughter, now that I understand why she was like that, and I think that is the right way to live, because I don't want people to come and question me for who I am, because people are accepting her for who she is now. And I think that's like a real big thing. People like her who she is. People like her for her mother loves her parents love her sisters love her. That's because regardless of how she is, so she is able to get best of both worlds. I feel I don't know what else to say for this. What do you have in mind?
The thing is, like, I think your family is an exception here, right? You can I don't know. I feel like yes, that's the way that ideally it should work. But in a collectivistic society like ours, what usually happens is, see, I have friends who ran away and gotten married. I have friends who know people who basically rebelled against their families to do certain things. And what usually happens is we see this news, right? The father, the father of the bride will invite the couple back home, and then the father will murder the daughter because honor killing is still a thing. And I think for a lot of people, that fear is very real. Like, where, yes, as much as, like, I'm scared that you will hate me, I'm also scared that you might hurt me physically to the point where I no longer exist tomorrow, right? And we need to kind of face the reality of like how it's very easy for us to abuse children, female children. Uh, like if you look at one of the like principles in Taliban, like their belief system, right? They believe that like this is also true. It's psychologically backed up. Like it's a research backed up fact. Six, 7, and age 7 is known as the age of reason. So when you turn 7, that's when your brain becomes capable of rationality, right? So the idea is that you need to get girls married when they turn 7, right? Because if you wait for a little while, girls will develop rationality more and more, and they might become very hard to manipulate and control, right? You still see this type of content floating around the internet where they say, 25, you are expired, right? Like, bro, where are you getting this from? Like, women don't get expired. People cannot get expired until they die. But then they've convinced us that even like in the hospitals, this is also something that unfortunately is happening. This is again, data from the US, where they say that like if you're a woman who's seeking treatment for something, they don't take you seriously because you're a WW, you're a whining woman, right? But then if you're a woman who's seeking treatment and you say, I'm trying to get pregnant, right? Then they take all your symptoms seriously because they need you to get pregnant, right? So what you see is, at the end of the day, your value as a woman comes down to your purpose in a man's life. Are you serving a man? And if you're not able to, then we don't see the point of you being alive. And that's scary. That's so scary. So how do you, what exactly, my question is, like, let's stop expecting men to support us because they don't want to support us, right? But how can we as women support each other when we're going through crisis? Like, what would you want your friends or your like? This is also an unfortunate thing that happens in our socializing process, where it's very funny to say, I don't like girlfriends. I prefer guy friends because girlfriends are drama, right? But then if a girl is not willing to sit with you and listen to you, uh, there's no hope for you. Like, there's literally no hope. There's nobody else who can understand you like a girl can understand you when you're a woman, right? So, how do we bridge this gap? How do we become better women just so we make a better world for women?
I don't know. All I could think of was the episode where you spoke about judgment, the self judgment and others' judgment. Like, we should, I think, stop judging people for other women for who they are, how they are living their life. For example, like, you know, we as women, we go through a lot of labels. And the same very women, we put labels on other women. Like, we call them, like, if they get married second time, we call them names. If they get divorced, we call them names. If they break up and have another relationship, we call them names. Like, I think it all comes down to that. Like, how cruel are you to another woman? Because I think that's the only way. As when you start normalizing a woman's action, when you start normalizing her choices, her decisions, the way she wants to live her life, and not stop judging her for being whatever she wants to be, whether to be independent or whether to be a mother, whether to stay at home, whatever she's choosing. And if you are the person to judge, I think we need to stop there, and we need to look at inside ourselves and cheer for that woman for whatever she's choosing to be. I think that's all. At the moment we can start like a movement, I feel.
I agree with you, but I also don't know if we should, agree with women for everything. For instance, if a girl comes to me and says she wants to prioritize like marriage and she wants to discontinue college or school for that, right? I will probably not let her do that. I will say, go to school. Shut up, go to school. Like, no, no, your love is not that holy that you need to like quit school for this shit. Like, no, right? Go to school. Just go and get yourself educated. Make sure you know how to do basic math, science, English, whatever. And then, find a purpose outside a man. This is something that I'm, like this is one of the current type of literature that I'm reading, where it's about decentering men. Whenever you're doing something, think about if it is in any way or form benefiting men. If it is, don't do it. Right? So, small things like if you talk to your girlfriends, if you're gossiping about something with your girlfriends, does it benefit a man? No. Do it more. Right? Do it more. Just do it more because, like, you are going to actually connect with women who I don't know how this is going to work out in the long run, but we need to start decentering men in everything that you do. Can you think of things that, like, places where we center men, and can we, like, look at how we can decenter them?
Tell me about it, bro. Tell me about it. So I think this is the same conversation I had with my friend yesterday night. So, because, in the relationships, I feel like as women we've been told that romantic relationship is all it is. I think as when we start around 18, 19, 20, I think we kind of start to center everything on our relationship, and I feel like it's very important to have a life outside of a relationship. And I think one thing I really recently looked at Radhika's podcast, right? So it she was talking about how as a person, not just as a woman, as a person, we are all alone in this life. There's nobody's going to save you, nobody's going to come and take care of you, nobody's going to take your problems and solve it for you. Like my one of my friend is going through a very difficult time at the moment, and I think she is in a relationship. But the thing is, what when she told me, which really was very important for every woman to know, is that she's going through all of that, and she said, I know that I can maximum I can talk to him, maybe he'll console me, but that's all it is. I have to get up that day and go and solve that problem, take care of that problem, and I have to do all this by myself. It's my life and it is my responsibility. And she's not in an inch feeling, that, victimizing. No, not a single moment she said that I am made to do this. She's saying it is my life, it is my problem, and I will deal with it. I think that is what is decentering is about. It's knowing. It's not about decentering, it's about centering yourself, your values, your life, and knowing what is that is your life, and how a man in your life is just a part of it. It's just a little bit part of it. And then, there are things that you need to keep it for yourself. There are secrets, not in the sense, not in a bad way that you're hiding something from your partner that is involved about, but you need to have your little joys, you need to have your little secrets that is for yourself, you need to have your little experiences that is for yourself. I know a lot of housewives in those times used to have their me time in the form of chai, having their chai and seeing their favorite cereal and having their me time. And I think this is something that we need to have a life of our own. I think please get a life. Please have fun in your life. Please enjoy your life so much that that even if that part leaves you, because in life we don't know what happens. Even if that part leaves you, it doesn't break you down. It doesn't like bring you down, completely destroy you. Because I think I know a lot of women, including me, I think we get destroyed when that one part of this relationship leaves, we get destroyed. And I think I want you to all enjoy your life, and you might be feeling a tinge of sadness, tinge of brokenness, but that's because as long as you make them a part of it, you will just feel the tenseness, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, I think the pain is going to be there because, we're finally waking up and realizing the system is so messed up, right? We're finally like waking up. So obviously the awareness comes with sensitivity. So we are going to be like aware of how much unfair, things that we had to, how many unfair things we had to tolerate. So that is painful. But I think one way to process this pain is to sit with it, feel it, but at the same time, like, have your little moments of joy, like you said. Like, yeah, I am drinking my chai alone because there's nobody else who will understand what I'm going through right now. I'm having my, me time with like the shows that I watch or whatever. Like this is a thing that I see a lot happening with my girlfriends recently, which is solo dates. A lot of them, I think, including you, right? Like, just don't stay at home, go somewhere. And I think, there is a safety concern that's there for women, but then these women are like, I don't care. Like if someone's going to come in, like I'm gonna like give it back. And what's happening is like they are on an adventure by themselves, and this is kind of creating this space where, if a man gives them attention, it's not really making them feel anything. Oh, you're giving me attention. What else can you give me? What more can you give me? It's just very refreshing because back in the day, I think if a man like looks at you or something, is like you remember even when we were in school, if a guy liked your story, it was like, oh my God, he liked it. But now it's like, okay, you liked it, so many people like it, right? So
So what?
yeah, exactly. So I think like this is evolution happening. So we're heading to a place where women are going to be pain free, hopefully soon. But then until then, we have to like accept that this pain is part of our transformation as a collective. So yeah.
I think as a sort of like an end note, I just want to re-emphasize what we've spoken so far is that like what we are trying to educate women is that your pain, what you're feeling, is not just because of your physical illnesses or physical conditions. It is more than that. It's much more deeper than that. It involves your childhood wounds, it involves your emotional patterns, it involves your psychology, it involves your social constructs, the kind of situation you live in, the kind of society you live in. It all comes together in making who you are as a woman, how you live free as a woman, and how you live painless as a woman. I think one thing we want you to take away from all this conversation is that try to, look at your life and, see where you can be happy. And I think one small activity I would say, I think, is that I have this box where I call it the joy jar. Basically, I think you would have heard about it. So I try different activities, and if it actually makes me feel better, I would put that in the jar, saying that so that at times when I feel extremely demotivated or low or anxious, and I have nothing coming to my mind what I can do, I will just pick something from the joy jar and see what has worked for me before, and I will just do it. And I think in the same way you can be creative with this, but I just want you to be happy, be you, be authentic, be free, and do not center your life around anything. I'm not saying not just like your romantic relationship, not about anything. Dependence is good in it to some extent, but you need to know that your pain, your life, your struggles, whatever you're going through, it is you. It's you have to handle it alone, and it's not a bad thing to handle it. It's your life. You are born alone, you are given these responsibilities alone. Why is it so difficult to do it alone now? You've been doing it so far, like, all these years alone. Suddenly it becomes difficult for you. So I think, yeah, that's what I want to leave the listeners about. What do you have anything concluding statement to say?
I think, people might kind of find it very insensitive where you say you're born alone, you've been doing it alone. Why can't you do it alone now? I think like when you've done it alone, even when you were not supposed to do it alone, right? Like from your childhood, you've been doing it. You want someone to do it with you. My suggestion would be do it with other women. Like if you don't want to do like a solo date, sit with other women and talk about it. I think women are much more deeper, intelligent, gentle with like the sort of content. I'm sure that it's difficult to find these women, which is why, we're kind of insistent on uh finding community where we can talk about this stuff. We hope that, this podcast is a place where we connect with such women, where we can talk about these issues, and we can create hopefully one day physical spaces where this community can kind of grow uh, as a group. I don't know where we're going, but then it would be nice to kind of grow that way. And as for the pain, to kind of conclude, I think pain that you're feeling has purpose right now because there is awareness. So, like she said, do sit alone because we don't have much option, right? But no, understand that as you're sitting alone, you're also like working on your life. You're centering yourself for the first time, which means your life is going to get better. You are going to become very intolerant of nonsense. Basically, if it's a good thing, you're going to say yes. If it's a bad thing, you're going to say no. And it's going to be very unapologetic, right? And yeah, I think this is a good place to end this episode where we've connected pain with purpose. We're also talking about like futuristically how support systems need to kind of be built so that we can fight the old oppressive support systems. And
So yeah, it's we are gonna end this episode, and we just have some announcements sort of a thing. So I think the next episode is gonna be our last episode, and we have a surprise for you. And please look forward to it. And we will be coming with something with a bang for the end. And until next time, we will see you. Do keep following us, subscribe, comment, give your thoughts, and let's form a very healthy community. So until next time,
bye bye,
tata.
people.